They say imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, and if that's the case, 1996's Wendetta 2175 is the shoot-em-up equivalent of a decent cover band. It hits all the right notes, but you've seen it all before. However, being the bastard child of Team 17's Project X and Super Stardust is not necessarily a bad thing, especially when the small dev team of Vortex Design delivered probably the best off-the-wall Amiga game engine since your conveniently mislabeled stag disc. The year is 2175, unsurprisingly, and all is peaceful on planet Earth until the Terrans, the self-proclaimed cruelest race in the universe, rock into the atmosphere. They launch an attack of barbaric proportions, not with lasers or bombs but with some form of giant Dyson, as they start sucking everything and everyone up into the sky. Utilising advanced ships, it's time to take the fight to them. The lengthy typo-riddled intro sequence sets the tone graphically, with a mix of 2D pixel art and 3D renders. It's ambitious, if uneven, with the title screen proving to be quite jarring. Speaking of which, you'll find the standard options as well as a password and ship selection screen before you embark. Jumping into the game proper, Wendetta switches between traditional 2D side-scrolling levels and 3D tunnel sections. The 2D portions of the game fare the worst graphically when held up against others in the genre. Environments are a little bland, as is the ship design. Scrolling is smooth with very little slowdown, but sprite flicker does become quite evident in more chaotic moments. It's competent, it's slightly underwhelming in places. The 3D levels perform better but still don't reach the heights of Super Stardust or Microcosm. Some levels do suffer with slight dithering, but the tunnels can be quite visually arresting. Vendetta's biggest problem is the standard of graphics on display can vary wildly, constantly undermined by an incoherent art style. This is typified in the enemies you'll face. From ships to skeletons to spears, it seems like the enemy design has been plucked out of a lost property box. There's nothing overly terrible, but its randomness means the game lacks a distinctive visual identity, feeling like a series of demo routines. Sound effects and music are up next. Explosions are crunchy and digitised speech is always welcome. Gunfire is certainly the weakest component, and the lack of any special attacks only reinforces this, robbing the action of any impact. The game is quite liberal with its influences and the soundtrack follows suit. There is a not so subtle reimagining of Snap's Rhythm is a Dancer for one, but the hard-hitting Eurodance and techno soundtrack really helps add another illusional layer of pace to the frenetic action. It might not be the most intricate of musical ensembles, but you'll be hard pushed not to be taken in by some of the beats. Wendetta doesn't do anything to reinvent the wheel across its 7 levels, but is a solid entry in the genre. Controls are responsive and collision detection is quite lenient, as the action unfolds at a quick yet manageable pace. You'll find bonuses littered throughout the levels, such as the standard extra lives, points and power-ups. Unfortunately, the power-ups are nothing special and you can hit the upgrade ceiling relatively quickly. There are no satellite ships, differing types of firepower or charge attacks, with only the frequency of bullets and the multi-directional shooting being the upgrade orders of the day. The die and lose upgrade system applies here too. Enemy AI and attack patterns are rather basic with set pathing for each wave of attacks. This includes the bosses who mostly lock onto your last location and hurtle towards you. As such, they are easy to work out and there's very little AI variety. In some of the 3D sections, if you manage the gravity that pulls you towards the floor in some instances, you can hover in a lower corner and avoid whole waves of enemies. Those expecting a stern challenge may want to look elsewhere, as the difficulty curve is quite gentle. 2-player co-op is always a good time, but this actually makes the game easier, being completable in around 45 minutes alone or as a team. Wendetta does try to mix up the gameplay with avoidance only areas, or being able to proceed after hitting an enemy a certain amount of times. Again, not game changing, but it provides some additional beats to an extremely linear gameplay loop. Wendetta 2175 never takes itself seriously, meaning you can forgive some of its shortcomings, with it being obtuse and thrilling at the same time. While hardcore shoot-'em up fans may scoff at the lack of challenge, Wendetta is accessible to non-veterans, and there's bags of fun to be had. Talking of fun bags, I now leave you with that absolutely swell ending, which I've had to censor slightly so YouTube doesn't come a-calling. As a heads up, I couldn't find a way to exit its infinite loop without rebooting the Amiga, so be aware who might walk in when you're spotting more great tits than a bird sanctuary. Enjoy.